Most people think rice is the safest thing in your pantry. It is rice. Plain, boring, supposedly impossible to mess up. Here's the thing, a shocking amount of supermarket rice is legally sold as premium, even when the bag is packed with broken kernels, over-milled grains, and mixed crop lots that would never pass as true top-tier harvest rice. And get this, you're often paying premium prices for labels like authentic basmati or extra long grain, while getting downgraded commodity leftovers dressed up in polished packaging. Americans buy billions of pounds of rice every year, and brands know most shoppers will never inspect what is actually inside the bag. That is where the scam lives. The real kicker is that some bargain brands have also landed under arsenic scrutiny and contamination complaints, which means your cheap pantry staple may not even be a safe compromise. Meanwhile, one of the best performing brands I tested costs less than several famous supermarket names and still beats them on aroma, purity, and cooking consistency. I spent weeks auditing these bags grain by grain, and the results were not what I expected. Why so many rice brands cut corners? Rice companies do not need to fake rice. They have found something more profitable. They downgrade it legally. Shortcut number one is broken grain inflation. Whole kernels command premium prices, but broken fragments are dramatically cheaper. So brands bulk up bags with fractured grains, then slap premium on the front anyway. But here's where it gets tricky. FDA grading rules allow broad tolerances, and most labels never tell you how much of that bag is broken pieces. Shortcut number two is overmilling. What makes this particularly infuriating is that overpolishing strips away aroma oils and flavor compounds that make rice taste like anything at all. That beautiful white shine on cheap rice is often the result of grinding away character until all you have left is bland filler. Then comes enrichment masking. After brands strip nutrients out during aggressive refining, they toss synthetic nutrients back in. Ferric phosphate, niacin, thiamine mononitrate, folic acid. Nutrition labels look respectable again, but flavor does not come back from the dead. The most cynical part is aging fraud in premium categories like basmati. True aged basmati should sit for 12 to 24 months before sale. Storage costs money. So many brands blend younger lots into older rice and hope your nose cannot tell the difference. Once you know how the system works, the labels start telling a very different story. Rice brands to skip. Brand number 5, Ben's Original White Rice. Ben's Original promises perfection in every grain. Too bad their actions tell a different story. This brand survives on recognition and shelf dominance, not consistency. Reviewers consistently cite mushy patches mixed with hard centers, which is exactly what happens when mass commodity sourcing pulls rice from uneven harvest lots. One scoop turns gummy, the next stays undercooked. And get this, when a rice brand operates at this scale, uniformity becomes collateral damage. There have also been foreign material recall concerns tied to contamination complaints, which is not what you want from something marketed as dependable pantry rice. If this is already saving you from a bad meal, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Skip brand number 4, Mahatma Long Grain Rice. Mahatma leans heavily on family tradition branding, which is clever because nostalgia sells better than transparency. Here's the thing, this rice is often heavily overmilled, stripping away much of the grain's natural aroma and texture. What you get is bland, dry rice that tastes like cardboard covered in ketchup without the ketchup. The enrichment additives restore label-friendly nutrition numbers, but they do nothing for flavor. The real kicker is that you are paying for rice that has had its best qualities polished off, then cosmetically rebuilt in a lab. Skip brand number 3, Iberia Budget Basmati. Iberia likes the phrase aged basmati, but often leaves out one important detail. Age for how long? That missing detail matters because aroma is everything in basmati. In testing, batches were wildly inconsistent. One bag had that nutty floral fragrance you expect. The next smelled flat and generic, like steamed packing material. What makes this particularly suspicious is the frequent use of mixed export lots, which creates uneven kernel length and inconsistent cooking times. And if a brand has faced scrutiny over heavy metals allegations, that should make you pause before tossing it in your cart. And if you're finding this ranking useful, hit the like button. It really helps the channel cut through the noise. Skip brand number 2, Store Brand Generic Enriched Rice. This is where supermarkets quietly dump the lowest commodity bids into bags. Labeled premium long grain. Bottom line, these store brands are often built from rejected premium contract lots. That means broken grains, mixed harvest batches, moisture inconsistency, and a cooking result that swings from soggy sludge to dry gravel in the same pot. The most aggravating part is that the packaging often mimics higher-end labels, banking on you being too rushed to compare kernel quality through the plastic window. Skip brand number 1, Instant Rice Mixed Products. Instant rice products sell convenience, but convenience is doing a lot of cover for structural damage here. Parboiling and rapid dehydration allow damaged grains to survive processing because flavor packets, emulsifiers, anti-caking agents, and enhancers mask effects. What you are eating is less rice and more science fiction held together by sodium bombs and shelf stabilizers. The real kicker is the price to value ratio. You're often paying double per serving for rice that has already lost much of its texture integrity before it even hits the microwave. The jar test you can do at home. Want to spot low quality rice in your own kitchen? There is an easy test. Put 2 tablespoons of dry rice into a clear glass. Add water, shake for 10 seconds, then let it settle for 1 minute. High quality rice gives you slight cloudiness, even sinking grains, and very few floating fragments. Low quality rice creates a thick, cloudy starch bloom, powdery sediment at the bottom, and broken shards floating on top like debris after a storm. That cloudiness tells you a lot. Excess starch dust usually means too much breakage, poor milling control, or damaged grains that should never have made it into a premium bag. Now let's get to the brands actually earning your money. The high quality brands worth buying. Winner number 4, Rice Select. Rice Select is one of the few brands that treats varietal labeling like it matters. Their Texmeti line is a breakthrough product in this category because milling standards stay consistent, kernel sizes are uniform, and the rice cooks with a balanced, fluffy texture instead of turning gummy halfway through steaming. Winner number 3, Nishiki. Nishiki has built a cult favorite reputation for one reason: consistency. If you have ever made short grain rice that turned into glue paste on one night and dry pebbles the next, you already know how rare, dependable texture really is. Nishiki avoids that trap with a notably low fracture rate, which means fewer broken kernels releasing excess starch into the pot. The result is rice that cooks moist and tender, with that slightly sticky cohesion you want in sushi rice bowls, or anything where texture matters. What makes this particularly impressive is the price point. Nishiki is not pretending to be luxury rice. It sits in that sweet middle ground where affordability meets reliability, and that is exactly why so many restaurants keep it in bulk stock. They are not paying for flashy packaging. They are paying for rice that behaves the same way every single time. And get this, when you inspect a dry bag of Nishiki, the kernel lengths are remarkably even. That tells you the sourcing and sorting process is tighter than most supermarket competitors. Bottom line, if your meals depend on short grain rice texture, this is one of the safest bets on the shelf. Winner number 2, Royal Basmati. Royal Basmati is where things get interesting because this brand quietly outperforms a lot of premium labels charging more money for worse grain. Here's the thing, Basmati lives or dies on aroma. When you open a bag of Royal, you get that signature floral, nutty fragrance immediately. Not a faint hint, not a weak afterthought. A real aromatic punch that tells you the aging process was handled with actual care. That matters because many cheaper Basmati brands cut corners by blending partially aged lots, which creates uneven cooking and bland flavor. Royal's narrower sourcing specialization gives it an edge. The grains cook long, dry, and separate, instead of collapsing into sticky clumps like Bally-handled commodity rice. The real kicker is value. In many stores, Royal sells for the same price or less than inferior supermarket basmati brands hiding behind imported branding. That makes it one of the strongest price to quality buys in this entire ranking. If you are making biryani, pilaf, or any dish where rice is supposed to carry aroma instead of disappear into the background, Royal is the gold standard in affordable basmati. Winner number 1, Lundberg Family Farms. Lundberg is what happens when a rice company treats grain like food instead of inventory. Family owned since 1937, Lundberg has built its reputation around traceable California-grown sourcing, and that difference shows up immediately in the bag. The kernels are uniform. The fracture rate is low. The aroma is fresh instead of dusty. This is rice that looks like somebody actually cared before selling the package. What makes this particularly rare is their farming reputation. Lundberg has spent decades focusing on cleaner agricultural practices, and while that does not make the rice cheap, it does make the premium price easier to justify. You are paying for tighter quality control, cleaner sourcing, and grain integrity that survives cooking. In testing, Lundberg consistently produced the most balanced texture across multiple styles, whether long grain white, brown rice, or jasmine varieties. No gummy collapse, no chalky centers. No weird mix of half-broken fragments hiding at the bottom of the bag. Bottom line, if you want domestic rice that behaves like a flagship product instead of a commodity filler, Lundberg is hard to beat. If we are balancing price, purity, aroma, and consistency, Royal Basmati takes the overall affordable crown. Lundberg may have the cleaner farming story, and Nishiki dominates short grain categories, but Royal hits that rare sweet spot where premium performance meets mainstream pricing. It beats several overpriced supermarket brands while often costing less, which is exactly the kind of market contradiction consumers should pay attention to. And get this, in blind cooking tests, Royal repeatedly delivered the most reliable aroma retention after steaming. That is not marketing fluff. That is what you actually notice when dinner hits the table. If you buy only one rice after this ranking, this is the one that gives you the best odds of getting your money's worth. Now you might be wondering, if some of these weaker brands are so mediocre, why are they still dominating shelves? Because rice shopping is built on habit, not scrutiny. Most people buy rice the same way they buy paper towels. They grab the brand they recognize, assume all bags are roughly equal, and move on. That is exactly what these companies are counting on. They are banking on you being too busy, too distracted, or too price sensitive to inspect kernel. Quality through plastic packaging. The most manipulative part is shelf placement psychology. Big commodity brands pay for eye-level shelf space, oversized packaging, and comforting language like family trusted or premium quality. Those phrases mean almost nothing in real grading terms, but they trigger familiarity. Familiarity sells. Store brands use another trick, price anchoring. A generic enriched rice bag placed beside a premium specialty brand looks like a bargain at first glance, but when half the contents cook unevenly and turn into mushy sludge, that bargain becomes culinary punishment. You save maybe $1 and got a pot full of disappointment. Bottom line, weak brands survive because they understand shopping behavior better than grain quality. Here is where it gets tricky. Most rice labels are designed to distract you from the details that matter. First, look for country of origin specificity. If the bag says vague phrases like imported from multiple countries or avoids naming sourcing regions altogether, that is usually a sign of mixed lot blending. Mixed sourcing increases inconsistency. Second, inspect kernel visibility through the packaging window if there is one. Uneven lengths, chalky white fragments, and excessive broken pieces are warning signs. Premium rice should look visually uniform before it ever hits water. Third, beware of enrichment overload on plain white rice. If the ingredient list reads like a vitamin chemistry set, chances are the rice has been stripped aggressively during milling. And finally, pay attention to aroma claims. If a basmati or jasmine rice does not mention aging specifics or harvest region, the brand may be leaning on branding language instead of actual quality standards. The real kicker is that once you know how to decode these labels, bad brands become much easier to spot. Rice should be one of the purest foods in your pantry. Instead, too many corporations exploit broken grain loopholes, overmilling shortcuts, and blended sourcing opacity to turn a basic staple into a branding exercise. They strip out quality, polish away flavor, then sell you the illusion of premium grain at inflated prices. When brands remove integrity and replace it with marketing, they are betting you never look inside the bag. Your health is not a commodity for these corporations to optimize. So the next time you shop, skip the familiar names that coast on shelf dominance and empty promises. Choose brands that respect the grain itself. Lundberg for clean domestic reliability, Royal for unbeatable basmati value, Nishiki for dependable short grain precision, Rice Select for specialty consistency. Because once you taste the difference between real quality rice and downgraded filler, it becomes very hard to go back. Hit subscribe if this changed how you'll order burgers, and drop a comment telling us which ranking you think we got wrong.